Hello everyone, my name is Tebogo Makure at Orbit College, Mango campus. Today we are going to do engineering fundamentals. This is the book that we are using in our college, but if then you are using a different book, the contents are the same. In the previous chapter, we have learned about a safe workplace. We have learned about unsafe acts and unsafe conditions that can lead to accidents, fatalities in a workplace. We also have learned about what should employer expect from you as an employee, and then what you should expect from the employer as an employee. So now, our topic for today is safety practices in an engineering workplace. So the main objective of the lesson is to learn about a good practices in the workplace. So now, the important aspects about the topic for today are the following. First thing, housekeeping. Somebody may ask, what is housekeeping? We do have different aspects about this term, housekeeping. Even when you go for an interview for an employment, I rest assure you, you are going to be asked about this question, what is housekeeping? Housekeeping is very much important in all workplace, not only engineering workplace. Before you commence with your duties, you make sure that everything are in place and everything are in order. So housekeeping simply means a place for everything and everything in its place. For an example, let's start from home, in the kitchen. The way the kitchen unit is built is not just to make it smart. It's just to make sure that everything is in order. There's a place for glasses. The glasses are fragile. They can break easily. So then if you can put them together with the rest of the equipment, they are going to break easily. So now you have to spend another money to go and purchase the new ones. We have the racks for spoons. We have the racks for dishes, as like that. So when we go back to an engineering workplace, we are using different types of tools. We are using different machineries. All these machineries should be in a good working condition and should be placed in order. That is housekeeping. Housekeeping doesn't mean to keep the place clean. The main concept is to keep the workplace safe for the workers. So now, we have the legal requirements for a good housekeeping. That is the other aim of the lesson. And then we have the consequences of a poor housekeeping. We have how to care for tools and equipment. As you can take care of yourself, you have to take care of all the equipment that you are using as well. Then you are going to learn about how to store the equipment and then how to stack the materials as well. So now, let us go back to a good housekeeping. A good housekeeping is a legal requirement. Why do I say it's a legal requirement? It starts with the employer. It is the responsibility of the employer to make sure that the place is safe and healthy for the workers. So what should the employer do? It is the responsibility of the employer to make sure that the employees are safe and healthy in the workplace. These are the things that the employer should provide for the workplace. A full personal protective equipment. What do we mean by personal protective equipment? We are talking about a full set of overalls, boots, goggles, earplugs, eyeglasses or protective glasses. Those are the things that when you get into an engineering workplace, you must make sure that you are wearing them properly. Then now, secondly, we have a first aid equipment. Each and every workplace should have a first aid equipment. So now, as workers, will we be able to use that first aid equipment? Do you know what does that box have inside? It is the responsibility of the employer to make sure that he or she provides all the workers with the basic first aid training as well as the firefighting training. As we should have firefighting equipment in the workplace. Why should we have this firefighting equipment in a workplace, especially in an engineering workplace? We are working with hazardous substances. We are working with explosives. So then a fire can emerge at any given time. So then at least whilst we are still waiting for the professionals, we must be able to try to fight the fire. While somebody got injured, while we are still waiting for a professional first aider like paramedics, we must be able to provide an injured person with an emergency care. So there are some other things that are very much important that the workers should always be aware of when they get into an engineering workplace. Safety notices and warning signs. As we go along the road, we see we have stop signs, we have signs for the harms, we have the signs for the animals that will be crossing by. Even in the workplace, we should have such things. Why? Because in a workplace, we are using dangerous materials, we are using dangerous machines, so then anything can happen. So we must always have these safety notices to make sure that the workers are safe. Can I give you an example? If somebody is using the machine breaks whilst using the machine. Some students have tendency of not reporting when the machine is damaged. He feels that he made a mistake. It's obvious that when you use something, something can go wrong while still working. The most important thing is just to report to make sure that the safety sign is put on the machine or on the equipment to make other people aware that the equipment is not in a good working condition. So now we have bins for waste materials. For the workplace to be always clean and healthy for the workers and for everybody, we should have bins where we are going to throw all unnecessary materials. Then tools, equipments are in a good working conditions. How will we make sure that tools and equipments are in a good working condition? It is very much important to make sure that the equipments, the machines are maintained. We normally use machines, dangerous machines, but we do not maintain the machines. Let's take an example of a car. You cannot just keep on driving the car without taking the car for a service. By so doing, you will maintain a long lifespan of tools and materials so that you can prevent to buy from time to time. So let us look at the picture there. Everything is lying everywhere. I see the hoses for pipes. I see the hoses for water. I see the hoses for the cylinders. I see a cylinder there. The cylinder is not stacked correctly. I see the step ladder. I see something that is folded there with a blue cloth. I don't know what is it. I see it's like the welding machine there. I see the cables there lying on the floor. Then I see the welding wire. Look at the welding machine where it is. Look at the welding wire where it is. You cannot understand what is going on, because I think this person is doing the MIG type of welding. So then the welding machine should be closer to the cylinder, should be also closer to the wire. So then everything is scattered. When we talk about a bad housekeeping, this is the kind of the workshop that we are talking about. When you look at the picture there, we saw cables lying on the floor. We saw things lying everywhere. So now, what are the consequences of such a bad housekeeping? The consequences of a bad housekeeping can include the following. You can trip. And when you trip, remember, other equipments around there are dangerous. Just imagine what is going to happen if you have to trip and fall and you bump over a sharp edge of an object. That will be a very serious injury or a fatality. Now imagine if you have to work in a wet floor or a greasy floor. What's going to happen? So now, you must always think about safety at all the time. All these things, in an engineering workplace, we call them hazards. So now, when you start with your duties in a workplace, make sure that you identify all the hazards, remove all the hazards. Hence, even the equipment that we are using are hazards on its own. Just try to identify all the hazards to at least decrease the chances of getting injured. So you can even get severely injured by equipment or tools that are not in a good condition. Guys, let me tell you something. Never ever try in any case to fix any tool or any equipment. You are not a specialist. You are just a learner. You are just a worker. If equipment is broken, put it aside. Make sure that you get the one that is in a good working condition. This is the damaged tools and equipment that I was talking about, that when they are damaged, make sure that you replace them, and then other ones that are damaged, you throw them away so that other people cannot be able to access them. Now we go to one of the objectives of the lesson: how to take care of tools and equipment. As you take care of yourself, you have to take care of everything. As you can be able to take care of your room where you are staying, even the tools and equipment that you are using, you have to take care of them. So these are the guidelines for looking after the tools and equipment. So it's sometimes funny when somebody says, clean the tools. It's important, clean the tools. They need to be cleaned at all the time. You use the soaps, you wipe them. After the time, you take a dry cloth and then you wipe them properly. Some other tools might have sharp edges that might be dangerous. Make sure that you cover the sharp edges to protect them and to protect other people from injuries. Never lose the tools lying around. Blades must be sharpened if necessary. Why it is important to sharpen the blades? Normally when they become blunt, they are dangerous. They will never do the job properly, and then they will get damaged easily. So then by sharpening them, you put them in a good working order for a long lifespan and also to prevent injuries. Machines must always be inspected and maintained. I think I've talked about that at the beginning of this lesson. The moving part and tools of the moving part of the machines and tools must be lubricated to prevent rust. When they are lubricated, you use oil so that they can work properly, so that they cannot break, so that they cannot get rust. So now we go to another guideline, which is the storage of equipment, how to store equipment. After using the tools, store them in a correct place and in a correct order. They differ in sizes. Like spanners, we have size 10, 11, you can name the sizes. Put them in a correct order so that when you look for the tools, when you are doing something, you must be able to save time. Stored equipment always be out of the way. People must be able to move. You must create enough space for you, yourself as a worker, and for the other people to be able to move. Do not store heavy items where they will fall. When they fall, they can cause injuries. Store fragile items where they won't get damaged. In an engineering workplace, we use some tools, some equipment that are fragile. And those fragile equipments are very expensive. So make sure that you store them where they won't get damaged. Then we go to a stacking of materials. How to stack the materials. Secure materials so that they cannot fall. If we can refer to that picture, we have the cylinder. That cylinder was not secured. And I think that cylinder is having a hazardous gas. Cylinders must not always lie on the floor, they must stand upright. Well, the cylinder is stood upright, but unfortunately, it is not secure. If it can fall, it can cause a serious damage, because even explosive can be caused. It can explode if it falls. Consider the need of availability of the material. I think I've mentioned it, that you put them accordingly so that if you look for them, you don't have to waste time. You must be able to access them within a short space of time. Then observe height limitations when you stack the material. You in an engineering workplace, we normally say, if you are working at the height of from a height of 1.6, you need to wear a harness, which means you are not safe. It is like with the tools. When they start to be at a certain level, they must not save. So you must also observe the height when you stack the material. That is very much important. There might be some questions when we finish the chapter. Each and every unit have got the learning activity. I would like you to do all the learning activity so that you can learn effectively. So there are some questions that may be asked. We talked about housekeeping. So now, the first question might be, in your own word, explain a good housekeeping. And what are the results of a good housekeeping? What are the results of a good housekeeping? We have a lot of, it's not difficult to maintain a good housekeeping. If you maintain a good housekeeping, you will have a positive result. Less or minor injuries. Or sometimes injuries cannot occur at all. But in an engineering workplace, hence we said accidents occurs at any given time. But then when you do a good housekeeping, the injuries will be limited. This can also increase the productivity of the company, and then it can as well save the cost of the company. Now imagine if somebody have to get injured, seriously, or if somebody have to lose his life, what is going to happen? This is going to affect a lot of people. We start from your family, the loss of your life, they will suffer from that. Secondly, the company have to compensate. The company have to pay for the cost. So then we always have to think about those things. A good housekeeping is very much important. We get good results from the good housekeeping. Then some other companies, they can even give the workers a bonus for not having accidents for a certain period. That is a benefit of good housekeeping. So what are the consequences of a bad housekeeping? They will be opposite to a good housekeeping. Then the other question can be, what are the guidelines of how to take care of tools and equipment? I've talked about that. For you to answer these, go to all the learning activity, answer all the questions on your own. These are some questions that might be asked in an exam. And the other thing that I know that examiner likes, the examiner prefers to put the picture of a bad housekeeping. You would identify the hazards, you will see a lot of things. Sometimes people cannot be able to identify from the picture. This is now where you have to learn how to identify hazards from the picture. As we have talked about the storage of equipment and stacking of the material, maintenance is also important as well. You have to maintain the storage of the equipment and then the stacking of the materials. How to maintain the storage and stacking equipment? Like cupboards. When you use the cupboards must be closed properly. Shelves should be steady, which means should be stable. They mustn't be able to to be shaken so that the equipment are also they cannot fall. So nothing should be loose. The equipment should be clean, as we talked about cleanliness at all the time. So then after doing all these things, you have to do your housekeeping checklist. If you go to your book, we have the housekeeping checklist. As we are using different books, the content might be the same, the page might be different. So then I think each and every book have got the housekeeping checklist. So go through your checklist, whether you have followed all the necessary precautions to maintain a good housekeeping. So the one that I'm having here is that I have the column there. The first point on the column is talking about the labeling of the paper storage. Make sure that you label the storage. So we also have the chemical. When you use the chemicals, like in our case, we are using gases. Different cases. They mustn't be combined. You must always separate them. This is how you are going to do the checklist to make sure that these things have been complied with. And then, when you go to the machines, you have to check whether the machines are clean. That is the checklist. You make sure that the machines are clean. You make sure that all the parts of the machines are in place. You make sure that the stop and on and off sign of the machine is there and it's working properly. And then you also check for the cutting blades. As I talked about covering the sharp edges, you check that all the sharp edges of the equipment are covered. Then you check the floor, whether it's clean, no greasy, no oil, no water off the floor. Actually, the housekeeping checklist is now when you complete your job and then you make sure that the workplace is left clean and everything needs to be placed in order. So now, as we come to our end of the lesson, don't forget to do the learning activity. So then the next lesson will be the demarcated areas and safety signs. Remember I talked about the safety signs that are supposed to be placed in the workplace so that workers can be aware of the safety in the workplace. So in the next chapter, we are going to do the demarcated sign and then the demarcated areas in a workplace. So please, guys, don't forget to study as the exam is going to be written, and then as we are facing a very serious challenge in the whole world of the pandemic of coronavirus, please do not forget to wash your hands. Please do not forget to stay safe. Use your sanitizers as well as your face masks. I thank you.